Welcome, welcome.
Hey.
Um, so, guys, welcome everybody. Today we have with us the 2020 Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. So, welcome.
Thank
Uh,
you.
any information, guys? You guys are looking for finding out more information as well. You guys can go to our website, Joe, Joe, yeah, joej2020.com. I linked it in the chat as well. And you guys can look into it, look into more of what she stands for as well. Today we do have a limited amount of time, so we're gonna kind of just get right into it. And anything you want to tell anyone before we get started?
Okay, so we're not recording yet?
We are right now. We are.
Okay. Um, no, I'm just happy to answer any questions, and thank you for giving the website.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy and convenient too. I will have to say that to be able to find out stuff. Um, so, um, so like I said, today we have about 15 minutes, guys. We'll be focusing on four items, and that's just what makes her a unique candidate for presidency, and stuff like that, and just kind of going over, especially with a lot of people aren't really aware what the Libertarians Party stands for. We have the majority left and the right side of all the politics for the most part. And I talked to a lot of different people, and a lot of people do lean libertarian, and they don't even know it. So I think it's kind of interesting to just kind of allow people to have that other option, versus what we're kind of told mainstream media as to what side we should choose, and just kind of get the education out there and also the information of who's actually running, because I don't think a lot of people actually know who's actually running half the time. So we're going to go ahead and anything about your campaign. What's something that you really want to get out there on your campaign that you think is like what makes your campaign special and unique than others that other parties have ran for in a similar instance?
Well, I really like to talk about healthcare. I think that's an important topic, and I think the rest of the country has it all wrong.
Okay, so one of your main things is just the healthcare. What exactly, briefly, like what do you want to see with the healthcare versus what it currently is?
Exactly. That what we have now, a lot of people think that what we have now is free market, and they say we need to go to socialism. But I'd like to spread the message that no, we don't have a free market system, and that's the problem.
And I agree. Um, and briefly, it's been said. I looked over the website and I couldn't really find an answer. And I know this is a very sensitive subject right now with a lot of things going on. It's 2020, probably the weirdest year I've ever encountered in my life. Um, but with that said, um, it's been said that you do believe in open borders. And there's been posts out there. I don't know exactly, from where. That's a big issue nowadays too. And it says that your state for open borders, and that's pretty much the way the Democrats have been wanting. And what is your take on the open borders, or how is your open borders different than just open borders?
Well, my take is that we had open borders until the 1920s, and that's around the time my grandparents came over, shortly before the 1920s. And it worked very well for our country before, and I'd like to return to that. What we see are people who want to become hardworking Americans, and it helps our economy, and it just adds more to the melting pot.
Now, do you think with the open borders, there should still be a system in place, or just and now would that just be with Are we talking Canada? Are we talking both Canada and Mexico? Do you just think that it should just be one giant nation, like with all that, and what kind of how do you think we can go about doing that? I mean, that's a big change to, especially to the history of all three countries, of just opening it up and just working together.
Well, as I said, when my grandparents came over, the borders were fairly open. and we didn't see any problems back then. And a lot of people will point out that they'll have some statistic, for instance, an anecdotal story about somebody committing a crime or somebody driving, having a DUI. And yet, if you look at the statistics, you'll see that people who are born on American soil have a higher crime rate than those who are born off of American soil. That when people come here, they are trying to better themselves, and in the process, they're bettering our country. So I'm not just doing this as a refuge to some people who want to come over, but rather to strengthen our country, to have people coming over with new ideas, new experiences, and just basically making us more competitive in the workplace, in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with. There's a lot of people out there that just wish they had just the moment of the opportunity to better themselves, their family, and do something right. Um, and I think that given that opportunity, I mean, I think would be great, and especially with our economy and stuff like that, outsourcing and also working together. I think that um, we don't see too much working together nowadays, which is kind of sad. But it'd be kind of interesting more to see how the other parties also react to that, because I know like right now, open borders is a very touchy subject. Might be with whoever's running that campaign or whatnot. Not too sure exactly, but it's a very interesting subject that I think that I think it'd be nice to go more in depth about that later on. Because, like I said, we have the mainstream media that just kind of covers one or two sides of it and not the whole picture.
Right.
Now, I noticed that you just posted or have posted in the past about bringing the troops home. Now, for me personally, like I said, that's very near and dear to me. I mean, I'm all about veterans' rights and veterans' freedoms. We have a lot of conversations on the channel about politics and policies, and it's kind of like, but where's the veterans in this, and how are we leaving them out when they've done this and this and this? I think they're more qualified to get a lot of the programs out there, more than others, I would have to say. But how would you accomplish? Because there's a lot of people that oppose this idea to potentially, due to the potential instabilities of the nations that we would draw from. How would you impose actually bringing the troops home versus just kind of saying it, but not actually being able to, I guess.
Well, and first, I understand you're a veteran, correct?
Yes, I am a veteran.
I would like to thank you for your service to our country. I think that many times you're underappreciated, and especially with the system we have. But yeah, as you know, we are stationed all over the world. We've become the world's policeman, and unfortunately, that's made us less safe, not more safe. So if you look over, first of all, we've got the cost. If you look over in uh, Western Europe, we're helping to protect Germany, France, and there's no reason why they shouldn't pay for their own. There's no reason why we should have, let's say, a taxpayer in Alabama helping to pay for Germany's defense. Let them pay for their own. But secondly, in the Middle East, we're actually uh, creating more problems for our safety by being over there. And all we have to do is look at 9/11. Libertarians have been pointing out, you know what? They're going to find a way to justify this and attack us, and they did. And I think that the sooner we get home, then the sooner that we can create a peaceful world. So, what I would like to do is turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral, uh, which is to basically open up our borders for trade, open up our borders for tourists, and of course, people who want to come to live here. But there's no need for us to be everywhere else in the world.
And you're welcome for that. And I didn't need to be told to serve my country. It's kind of natural instincts. And here on the channel, we do talk about Switzerland quite a bit. Actually, we were just talking about last night about talk about talk about gun violence, and you look at Switzerland, and it's a great role model of kind of like the what they're what it kind of proves that it's not so much the guns and stuff like that too. And so I bring that up a lot too, and they also have a lot of reform and stuff like that, which I think is really important. Um, And yeah, I mean, and now with that added onto there, what are some things that you want to kind of see or do when these troops do come home? I mean, we have a lot of Vietnam veterans homeless, and not a lot of programs out there for them. I mean, we have programs, but a lot of them are kind of, I mean, they're good programs, but not all of them I see implemented to all vets. And we have there's a lot of mental health issues out there, and just all these other things going on with these vets that serve our country, come back, and now they're sitting on the street. What's something that you would like to see possibly to add on to that? Not just bring them home, but what's something that you would like to see for these veterans once they get home? What's something you would like to see in that?
Well, first of all, I have a question for you. When you hear the left say that we need Medicare for all, my first thought is that's kind of like the VA hospital for all. Have you had
Mhm.
those thoughts?
Yeah, and it's kind of like people who serve their country. They get the health care. But I mean, personally, it took me 8 years to even get my benefits.
Hmm.
No dental, no help in the me and my wife want to have a kid, but we get no area of leeway there. But then we see healthcare for all, and I mean, it is more than even what the veterans could even get. And I'm kind of like kind of frustrated in that sometimes. I'm kind of like, but why? We do have rewards, I guess you could say, I call them benefits for people who serve the country, and now those are kind of like, well, anyone can get them now. You actually don't have to serve your country, so it kind of is upsetting when I do hear about that, um,
Well,
personally.
yeah, and just the point that it's not working, that you're not getting the care that you need. And if we can't even figure out how to have a monopolistic system, which by the way, monopolies never work. They're not responsive to people, they don't have the lowest cost, and they frankly just don't care about their customers or patients or whoever. So if we can't even run a VA hospital for people who serve their country, how are we going to have a Medicare for everybody in the country? And I think that that's tragic. And so it's just a tragedy that we're not taking better care of our veterans. And we wouldn't have to worry about all of these issues of PTSD and suicide, for instance, if we weren't over there where we shouldn't be. If instead of having our young people overseas where they shouldn't be, in all these traumatic experiences, having them here living a productive life with their families, having a job, and just living the American dream.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, especially with that's not even touching into the fact of how we're going to pay for this healthcare, and I think that is a whole nother issue that I think that is holding it back for this whole free healthcare thing too,
Yeah.
because
Might
free doesn't mean free.
no, yes, yeah. Like the old bumper sticker. If you think healthcare is expensive now, wait till it's free. So, do you mind if I address that a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
general. So if we look at the free market compared to a government monopoly, right now there are only um, two specialties that are somewhat free market, and those are uh, cosmetic surgery and LASIK surgery. And the reason they're somewhat free market is because insurance doesn't pay for them. So in other words, people spend their own money, which means that doctors have to compete. So they have to have higher quality, lower price in order to get your business. And what we've seen over the past 20 years is healthcare costs going down for those two specialties and quality going up because doctors they don't have the regulations, they don't have to worry about all this heavy insurance and administration, and instead they can compete just like when you go to buy a car or a computer. And that's really what the American people deserve, and it's also what the veterans deserve. They deserve to have doctors working to try to provide the best service rather than having a one size fits all large post office kind of monopoly that's not responsive.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I mean, I've had my encounters with the VA numerous times where I was sitting next to an older gentleman, and we were talking, and both of us were told, anxiety even before we were seen, and stuff like that too. And I feel kind of like, you know, what is this? And unfortunately for me personally, I cut back now going to the VA because sometimes I feel, what's the point, you know? Unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's the opposite experience you should have. And let me point out, so my degree is in psychology. Now, it is in industrial organizational psychology, but I have additional training uh, so that I can. I'm in my training for therapy, put it that way. And I can tell you, a lot of people when they look at depression or anxiety, a lot of times when they hear about somebody having depression, they say, "Oh, just snap out of it," right? Or anxiety, just kind of get a grip, right? But they don't realize just how biologically based those two are. Huge genetic influence, huge biological basis. So it'd be like telling somebody, just get over your high blood pressure. You can't always do that. So we need to really have more sympathy, and we need to have better care, of course. And what I say is, let's stop it to begin with. Let's turn America into one giant Switzerland and be at peace with countries around the world instead of going around causing problems and starting wars.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely agree with that, in every way. Um, over my tours, the first one, the second one, and then the third one, like, what are we doing here? It was really kind of unfortunate. And because of that, yeah, I mean, a lot of people on my channel know that it is very hard for me to work and get the ability I can. Like, I'm still waiting for knee surgery. That probably will never happen, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, in fact, a story that my social studies teacher taught us in high school. He was trying to explain to us why the Soviet Union wasn't doing well because Soviet Union was still in place, and he said that when he was in the army, he'd go have the army doctor check the tooth, say, "Yep, got a cavity, need to get it filled." So then he'd go back, a few months later, and the dentist would say, "Yep, got a cavity, need to get it filled." He said it
Hmm.
wasn't until after he left the army, when a dentist could actually make money filling it, that he finally got the care that he needed. And so that just made a really lasting impression on me. And it just shows how um, monopolies just basically don't work. Central planning doesn't work. That's what we discovered from Russia.
Yeah. Um, I mean, and absolutely. I mean, there's probably so many stories out there, and that's what kind of triggered. It's funny that, talking about this, that's what kind of triggered this whole channel and everything that I want to be able to do, is because, like I tell everyone, we take the debates. They always talk about replacing Trump, replacing Trump, replacing Trump, and it's kind of like, what are we exactly going to do if we do put you in office? And out of all these conversations that I hear about the media, whether it's CNN, Fox, whatever the case may be, whether you like them or not, no one really talks about the vets and all this. And I feel like, because a lot of people look at the vets as not really as a viable voter, because they're kind of done with the government because of all of this. They're kind of like, well, what are they going to do? I can't even get health care. And so, we kind of push them off to the side, and we kind of forget about them. And that's at least my experience. So that's why I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do what I can.
Well, in fact, a lot of people were surprised. Now, I'm not sure, you've probably heard of Ron Paul, who was our 1988 presidential candidate.
I voted
So,
for him.
oh, good. So in 2012, when he was running for office, people were shocked to find out that with the absentee ballots for the soldiers overseas,
Hmm.
more soldiers voted for Ron Paul in the primary than anybody else, and the donations to Ron Paul from the soldiers uh, totaled more than all the other candidates combined. And people are like, well, wait a minute, Ron Paul's the anti-war guy. Why are these servicemen overseas supporting him? And it's because I think that they were over there saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be here. I want to fight for my country. I want to serve my country, but maybe this isn't the best way to do it.
No, and absolutely. When I was over there, it was kind of the same kind of approach. It was like, we're still here, and that's what my thing. The whole Ron Paul for vets was I believe, was a huge thing I stood for, and I agreed with him in every way. It was, we don't need to be in a pointless war. We could be taking that energy and putting it somewhere else more productive versus breaking our Americans, and then expect them to go back out immediately, just constantly over what, some oil, some resources, or some political gain. And it's kind of like, who's really winning. In fact, it's the Americans that are hurting because now there's some children without their father now, or their
Right.
mother and stuff like that, and they come back to society. They're broken, and they got still somehow fulfill the American dream while being so limited. And that's what Ron Paul spoke to me about. Pretty much like what I took from it, and I was like, absolutely. We need to
Yeah.
go in there if we're going to go to war, do the job, and move on, get out of there because those people don't want us there just as much as we probably don't want to be there.
Right. Right. By the way, do you know who Adam Kokesh is? He was one of the libertarian candidates for the nomination.
I can't say I know them on the top of my head. I've probably come up,
Okay.
come
Well,
across it.
I just wanted to let you know if you weren't aware. So one of the, I would say, we just had our nominating convention, online nominating convention a few weeks ago, and he was maybe one of the last 5 or 6 people who were in all of the debates. So he did carry a strong message, and he is a vet himself, and he's trying to spread the message of veteran suicide. And he may be somebody you would want on the show since uh, he was running for the nomination, and he shares your concerns and has the experience. So he, as a veteran, is saying, you know what, we need to come home.
And what was that name again?
Adam Kokesh. It's Kokesh. I'm sure whoever booked this show, I'm sure he could give you the
Yeah.
information. And I think he might be somebody good to have on your show.
Yeah, I think we mentioned him. I know we were talking about Cash Jackson as well. He's a veteran as well, and I'll definitely reach out to the gentleman who booked this, and I'll definitely talk to him and see what we can set up as well. Now, one last question, and I think this is a big one, especially with the last presidential election. Hillary versus Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as obviously, it's a libertarian party, completely different. Now, do you think that if you are nominated or elected president as a woman, does that do you think that that will help you in your presidential election, or because have voices listen to you and maybe actually make changes? But how would that also differ from, say, you want to do open borders or you want to pull out troops? Do you think that a lot of, like, Iran, Korea, stuff like that, where they're not exactly the most respectful towards women, do you think that's going to give you some challenges ahead, or do you think that that will be a benefit? I guess you could say.
Well, that's interesting. Nobody's ever asked me that question, and I haven't thought about it. But I would suggest that anybody, if any other country who sees that now we have a leader who is not going to be meddling in their business, who is going to open up free trade, who wants to trade peacefully and have a good relationship, I think that they would like that regardless of who was offering that. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't run into anything like that. I do know that some of the countries are kind of old fashioned, very, very old fashioned. They still, kind of believe in their ways. And, I mean, I would think that now with all the differences from years ago to now, I think hopefully things have shaped up, and maybe they'll be like, oh, hey, it's a completely different party, versus the same old that we've been dealing with. This is a different party. And maybe I don't know. Maybe it would be a benefit of being a woman and a libertarian. Kind of get outside of the norm, which I think would be kind of interesting to see too. Um, and now, as kind of feeding off on that real quick, as a woman, what do you think, with your presidential elections, for the women out there? What is something that you want to have, like a message, sent out to them, or something that you want to, cover in that? Like, what's something that you want to spread as a possibly the first libertarian female president, just to all? What do you want to pretty much have to say about that to all the people watching or will stumble upon this?
Well, I want them to base their decision on my policies, not my gender. So, uh, to me, it really shouldn't matter. Unfortunately, it kind of does now with government because government's gotten so large. But I want government so small that it really doesn't matter if there's a man or a woman in the White House, that basically We've got the basics of police, courts, and military. And after that, you're free to make your own decisions. And I know people can make much better individual decisions than government bureaucrats.
And that's kind of where I was getting at too. A lot of people with the media, they always like, oh, this is this person because they're the first woman, and it's like, but why? Why does that matter? When it comes to policies, and I mean, unless it does matter, like, you know,
I,
um, so I don't think it does, but
it shouldn't. Put it this way, it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
no, absolutely.
Because we should all have the right to life, liberty, and property, regardless of who you are. So it really shouldn't matter. And that's what I would strive for. That kind of a country.
And I absolutely agree. I can't not say anything about bad about that because I absolutely agree. I think with a lot of the media, we always identify things the way that doesn't really matter. It's we always talk about the man or a woman or this and that. It's like, but what does that have to do with it really? This
Yeah.
this this subject or this policy should matter for the reason why we're bringing up the policy or why we have this problem. Well. Well, thank you so much for coming down here and talking to me. If you want to take up some time, but just talking about just anything you want to cover personally, or just something you want to talk about in general, feel free to. Floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to close with if you are a Democrat and you think that your Democratic leaders have gotten us into too many wars, please consider us. And also, if you're a Republican and you voted for Trump because you were looking for an outsider, you're looking for somebody to make government smaller, and now you see that the deficits have actually grown every year instead of gotten smaller as he promised, please check out my campaign because I am running for peace in our country and around the world, and I'm running for a much smaller government, the government that Republican politicians have been promising for many, many decades. So my website is joj2020.com. Again, that's joj2020.com. I'd like to mention that we're overwhelmed with how many non-libertarians have come to volunteer. Usually that many don't show up so early in the campaign. And also, even if you don't want to check out my site, I would really appreciate your vote in November to make a real change.
And I do. I actually personally, I was talking to the guy who booked this. I personally been hearing people who backed Hillary, who were Obama supporters, Trump supporters. I actually normally with the Libertarian Party, we don't hear a lot of noise too much. We get censored quite a bit, unfortunately. At least I know Ron Paul did like crazy. And seeing all these people from different parties actually voting Libertarian this time, and I think I've been saying this for a while that I think that with the mainstream media that there's so much out there about how the left is fighting and the right is fighting. I mean, we have a lot of examples of childish activity during all of this, and just the 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 both sides kind of fighting at each other. Then I think people are just honestly just over it. I think they're just they just want to focus on the issues and get it done and stop doing this little quarreling with each other in the courts, outside the courts. I mean,
Yeah.
it shouldn't take 4 years to pass a bill just because of bickering. Um, it shouldn't, you know.
Yes. And John
Yeah.
should have voted to get rid of Obamacare because he said he was against it. So you use a very good word, bickering. We need to change things in Washington now.
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree. And, and guys, like I said, we're going to be posting the website with this. We're going to go ahead and, put it around. It's on the website, guys. So you guys can have the link right there as well. And, share this information if you guys agree. Even if you guys disagree. I mean, this is the things that we need to talk about and find some common ground. And if you guys have any questions to further, I mean, you guys go to the website. You guys can ask questions. You guys can do some research out there as well. Do you have any events coming up that you want to share out that, like, any kind of speeches or debates or anything like that you guys are going to be covering? Or
I'll be going to Minneapolis, and I with the coronavirus, of course, we're all kind of
yeah,
stuck at home. So
yeah, and that's kind of making it kind of interesting in 2020. Nonetheless, 2020 has been a very interesting year. So, all right. And I'm really hoping that in the future we can have a longer conversation or anything like that. I know you've been very busy with the campaign, so um, I'll get back with what's his name, and we'll hopefully set something out up for a longer time.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and have a good evening.
All right, you too, and good luck on the campaign, and be safe with the whole coronavirus out there. And all right, guys. So this is Joe Jorgensen. Remember, joej2020.com, the 2020 Libertarian presidential candidate, guys. So thank you so much for being on today, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. All right.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
All right. Bye.